What's up, everybody? Welcome into our NFL DFS DraftKings Picks video for Week 4. I'm your host, Ben Hustler, joined by the one, the only, Sam Sherman, the brain behind the projections portal, the Bet Karma prop predictor. This guy truly does it all. One of the biggest grinders I know. Sam, how are you doing this week?
You're too nice, Benjamin. Good. I'm coming off, as we talked off air, first baseball win in DraftKings in a while last night, so I'm riding high. But yeah, I mean, last week, I don't know if we're going to touch on this a little bit. If you already touched on with Anthony on the cash process, I felt like last week was weird, in which I felt really lucky to have cashed on my cash games and heads up and head-to-heads because I did have Fields, but I was shocked at it's something I want to bring up later. I was just shocked at ownerships, and I feel like I got lucky despite playing what I thought was like all chalk and the chalkiest lineup. So better be lucky than good.
Yeah, so you had a better week than I did, as I swapped off
For
of
once.
my original lineup had 195 with Justin Fields. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you did better than I did. If you guys are new here, please like the video first and foremost. Like the video on YouTube. It takes 5 seconds. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications bell so you know whenever we post new videos. And we're going to go position by position, talk about our favorite plays at each position, maybe someone we're not playing, and then pivot. And then we'll give away some stacks and bold calls at the end. So we're going to jump right into week 4. We're going to start off at quarterback. Sam, since you are the guest, I will start with you at quarterback. Who I know you're a big 3 max guy. So you're not
Yep.
playing strictly one lineup this week. What quarterbacks are you going to be targeting in week 4?
I guess I'll try to. I have my write-ups coming out after this, after we record this, but I don't know. I mean,
Where
you
can we
can if you
find
want.
that write up at? Where can we find that write
Oh,
up at?
DFSkarma.com on the NFL section right there.
For
Yeah.
free, 100%
Promote.
free.
Literally costs $0. Just give me the eyeballs. I write way too many words and I put way too much time in to have less than like 10 eyeballs. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I at least don't need to talk about how, like, obviously Mahomes is an elite play, Kyler's an elite play, everything like that. My favorites, I guess I'll do 3. I hope I don't take all of yours or anything. I play Dak every week. Everyone knows that. I think Dak is so underrated. Well, not anymore underrated, but I love the spot against number one. He's a little cheaper. I mean, $1,400 cheaper on DraftKings than Mahomes. And facing the Carolina defense, which, yeah, is really good. But as I note in my write-up, I mean, yeah, they've been strong, and maybe they are, and I'm just wrong. But the quarterbacks they faced are Zach Wilson, Davis Mills, and who was the third? Who's the third guy? The third guy, or is that Heineke they faced or something? Or not Heineke. But anyway, so I just don't know if they're as good as we think. And I think that after these 2 weeks of a lot of run heavy stuff in the Cowboys, this could be a big throwing game for Dak and get back to that kind of week 1-esque throwing. So I love Dak in the spot. I love that game. I also like, I think this one can burn me, but I like Aaron Rodgers. Not that everyone doesn't know how good he is, but I don't think anyone's going to own him. And I don't think people view this game as like a shootout type, because Steelers historically have a good defense. Rodgers only thrown like 32 times a game. And the Vegas total is pretty low, but I just like Rodgers in what we know is such a concentrated target share. MVS could miss, but it's all Devontae Adams. Everything else is basically Aaron Jones. Maybe Tony can catch the touchdown, but I just think Rodgers, he might not throw 50 times a game, but similar to that of, a Russ Wilson, he doesn't need to drop back 60 times a game to hit like a ceiling value. And so I like him in tournaments. Obviously, I wouldn't play him in cash. And then, I said I wouldn't mention him, but I guess my third will be Kyler, because you said this before, Pod, and I kind of agree, is that he does really never seem to get to the ownership that everyone thinks he does. I think a lot of it will be concentrated on Josh Allen, on Dak, on, I don't know, maybe people go cheap and go Matt Ryan or Justin Fields, but I think Kyler, in a really good game script and one where they should be throwing all game, is set to just continue what I guess could be an MVP campaign. So those would be my 3 favorites.
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. As far as my three, I'm gonna stick with the chalk for one, which is Josh Allen. I do think he's the best play on the slate. I told you before this, I actually think Dak might end up being a little bit higher owned. Um, but
Mhm.
I think Allen is probably definitely my favorite at home against Houston. High team total. It sucks that I was on him last week, and he had that huge game at 4 to 5% ownership. That's not going to happen again this week, but I do think he's in the best spot. Number two, you just talked about him, Kyler Murray. For me, this is someone I play every week. I talk about him on these videos and my articles every week. Agree. I don't think he's going to be owned at all. I think people will go to Mahomes, Josh Allen, Dak over him. Everyone, I've already seen it all over Twitter, like the talk about how he's never had a good game against the Rams and all this stuff. I just don't. I don't worry about that. We're talking about like a 4 game sample size, and one of those games last year he was extremely hurt. It was the end of the season, so I just don't bake that
Mhm.
in heavily. I mentioned that last week he scored 22 and a half DraftKings points and didn't throw a touchdown pass. So
Mhm.
his floor is so high. I think it's going to be a good game. Obviously, the over under is really high, and with this price, I don't think people will play him. So I think he is a really strong play. I might actually pick Taylor Heineke as my number third, which is going to shock a lot of people. But I just
I
feel
don't.
like I like the
Yeah.
price, but it just doesn't make sense to me that last week everyone talks about you have to play Daniel Jones against Atlanta. Like, I don't know what was like the hot button thing everyone was saying. Like Daniel Jones was like the highest graded PFF
Yeah.
passer through
Exactly.
2 weeks or whatever. like
Yeah.
you were such an
Basically, like
idiot.
he's better. Yeah, he's better than like we think because just the Giants suck so bad, but it's not Daniel Jones. But yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with your sentiment.
But you
Yeah.
have to factor that in that the Giants do suck and their offense sucks. So everyone wanted to play Daniel Jones last week. No one wants to play Taylor Heineke in the same matchup. He literally is a mini version of Daniel Jones. He's going to run a little bit, but I think their offense is better. I think
Yeah.
he can easily beat his price tag. So I like Taylor Heineke at 5,900. That's probably my three favorites. Who is someone that you're unlikely to play or that you would be fading this week?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I guess I always like to choose like chalky people, whether it's NFL or golf, whatever. That normally burns me because it's the best plays. I mean, I don't know. I probably won't play Jalen Hurts only because of just ownership. It's nothing to do with that. I don't think he's that good, but I don't know. That's a tough one because I do think the script is gonna that could change towards the end of the week. The one I almost surely won't have any of though is Lamar. I put Lamar, and it's not that he's burned me, but I don't know. It just not that he couldn't do well. I just think this is not a great matchup for the Ravens in general. And I know Lamar's kind of matchup proof, but at that price point, I just would much rather pay up to Kyler or drop down to Russ or Stafford or Dak or something like that. I just think the price point's too high.
Yeah, I probably won't have any Lamar this week either. It's just a gross game. It's tough to say to fade Lamar because his ceiling is so high, but that's overall a pretty gross game. I get like someone like Jimmy
That Vegas
G.
line seems like such a trap.
Yeah,
I cannot bet that. That's a weird one.
yeah,
Really
Jimmy
weird.
G. I won't like play any of him. Not that anyone's gonna play him, but um, I won't have anyone like that either. I'll probably have
Ben,
a
the one
pretty
guy I was gonna ask you
concentrated
about,
pool though.
the one guy that's do you have any like if you were entering like I know we only do a couple. I mean, would you have any interest in like playing Baker?
I don't know if I'd play Baker. I would definitely play Cousins. I think for
I think
sure.
Cousins is interesting. Yeah, yeah, Cousins. I just wonder because Baker. I don't know. Like as we'll get to that, I just really like Odell. I know they don't have a ton of, and he just but since Baker spreads it so much, you don't need to like double stack because he's like tight end, so you just play him with Odell or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean
I don't know.
that game has the same over under as Dallas Carolina, right? But everyone's playing Dallas Carolina. No one's going to play
Yeah, I mean,
Cleveland Minnesota.
Cleveland implied team totals like almost 28 points. So, yeah, Chubb could go wild against a bad line, but I'm just Baker. I don't know. It's just hard for me when I'm talking tournaments. I almost always am focusing on ceiling, and it's just hard to see, Baker having the 40-point explosion game like Josh Allen could have or Mahomes or something like that. So,
Yeah, I don't know if I would play Baker, but I think like if you play Cousins and one or
Thielen
two,
Jefferson.
yeah, one or two of
Yeah.
them you can run back with Odell. I definitely think that's a good tournament stack.
Yeah.
As far as your quarterback pivot goes, I'm curious to know.
Mine will be probably, I think I like Josh Allen like you do. I think Josh Allen or Dak will be the highest owned. I'd say my pivot would be to Russ Wilson because I always play him number one. But number two, I just think against the San Francisco D that I view them I think they are good, but kind of like the Steelers and the Ravens. They just people always assume they're just unstoppable, but I think they're definitely gettable. I mean, the Packers had their way with them pretty easily. I think Russ is as good as Rodgers at least, and he has more weapons even than Rodgers does. So, yeah, while Pete Carroll is the worst and decides to run the ball for no reason, he just is so efficient. I could easily see Russ kind of having to throw a game because the 49ers still do have a good run D and at easily sub 5% ownership.
Yeah, I don't mind that. Mine probably Matt Stafford. I don't know if he'll be super high on because of he's priced a little bit above Dak.
Doesn't it seem like he should be here, but he's probably not going to be?
Yeah, we kind of thought that last week too, but I mean, this is someone that we want to play. We know where the ball's going to go. It's going to go to Cooper Kupp. It's going to go to Robert Woods. They have the third highest team total on the slate. It should be a good game. I think Stafford. I mean, this guy, him and Kyler are kind of like the leading MVP favorites right now, and they're squaring off in this game.
Oh.
And I don't think it's. I don't think it's. Yeah. Well, I don't think it's going to be. I don't know if this game is going to be chalk as a game stack because most of the people are pretty expensive. Other than Woods,
yeah, no,
everyone
the same
is
thing
expensive.
You kind of get with exactly. You get the same thing with the Chiefs every week. It's you basically can't really stack Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey and feel great about the rest of the lineup. And it's the same, yeah. Kupp is now priced where he probably should be, and yeah, having a run back like Hopkins with Stafford and Kupp, that's pretty tough to fit everyone else. So I agree.
Yeah, so sign me up for Stafford in tournaments. We will move on to running back. I will lead off here. So I think overall number one play is definitely Derrick Henry. I kind of said it yesterday, I wouldn't be fading him in cash. I think you could play him in tournaments too. He should be more expensive. Even if they had healthy receivers, he still should be more expensive. Just because we like him when the Titans are winning, they're touchdown favorites. Jets have looked like the worst team in football. Now you bake in that AJ Brown for sure is not going to play, and I think it's pretty likely that
I think he already got ruled out. I think he got literally ruled out today.
Yeah, he's not going to play. I think it's pretty likely Julio doesn't play either. I don't see why they would need him. So it would make sense that they just give Derrick Henry the ball as much as he can handle. So I do think he's the top overall play. Outside of him, I'm gonna save Najee Harris for you because I know you really like him. So I'm gonna drop down to the low tier in that Detroit-Chicago game. I like both of David Montgomery and DeAndre Swift. I think Montgomery's going to be pretty high owned because of his price. I didn't even really mention him on the cash process yesterday, but 5,800 against Detroit, I do think he is going to be popular. I think Swift is a good pivot in the same game. Even without hearing the coach speak that they want to get him the ball more, he just has a valuable role with what he's been playing. I think he has a ceiling. Tough matchup, but I like his price point. And then outside of those guys, I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire a lot again this week. I'm probably going to play him. I don't want to say probably, but I'm strongly considering him in cash again. I think Philly is we saw how they played defensively against Dallas, kind of sitting back and forcing them to run the ball. I think they'll do the same thing against Kansas City. It's the same thing that the Chargers try and do. And Clyde had a really good game last week. I think 5,400 is still too cheap. Even after he fumbled early, they still went right back to him. So I think CEH is still a really good play at his price.
Yeah, the aforementioned. Najee. I think everyone knows it. He will be chalk. I think he's one of those guys where, when I will. So I opened up by saying I would mention this year has been interesting to me, and I've seen some other people write about this too. I think that the way DraftKings at least has done pricing has made it where I think ownership is much more spread out than it's ever been, where you get these chalk guys here in cash. But this year, I've yet to see, a Derrick Henry 25 or 30% owned in tournaments and everything. And so while that would normally be like, okay, yeah, I'm just not playing that in tournaments, I'll just risk it. I just don't think that's going to happen. And so Najee Harris, yeah, he could be chalk, but his usage, like he's probably not even expensive enough. I mean, yeah, he's not going to get 19 targets every game like last week, but he's on the field the entire time. Ben is awful. And now you add to the fact that Deontay Johnson, I think, will probably miss or definitely limited. Juju will probably play, but, he got hurt last week. And, I mean, Najee Harris, now is he getting all the snaps? I mean, he has tied with Swift for the most high-value touches per game with nearly 8. And all of this to be said that he's only scored 1 touchdown. So I think the term due is ridiculous a lot of times, but like in terms of positive regression, if looking at, expected fantasy points by touchdowns, I think Najee Harris is definitely ripe to have a good outing. My other 2 guys I'll say are more definitely suited for tournaments, like a little riskier, but I will go back after getting burned by him to Jonathan Taylor. Last week he lost. He was outsnapped by Hines, but they were leading. I mean, they were trailing a lot of the game. But Taylor, before he got taken out, was like so efficient too. So I didn't really understand that. But the Dolphins are, in my opinion, kind of a run funnel. I mean, they have good corners. They've been shredded on the ground. I mean, Peyton Barber, who I didn't even know he was still on a roster until last week, just went off against Dolphins. So like, if that's it, I mean, they're giving up almost 35 points a game to running backs. So I like Jonathan Taylor a lot. I wish it wasn't a split. He wasn't like conceding a lot of carries and like snaps to Hines, but he still is getting those high value touches and he still doesn't even score. So someone Najee Harris, I mean, I just don't expect that to continue. So I think he's a good pivot off of someone like Najee or Swift or maybe Montgomery or something. And I don't think he'll be anywhere close to like 10% owned. And then the last guy I'll mention is I could mention Kamara, but I think it's kind of obvious. I'll go back to Antonio Gibson. I still don't understand how you have a guy who catches a 73-yard pass and you don't throw it in the rest of the game. But besides the obvious issue with getting targets taken away and rush times from McKissick, Gibson is just, I think, will continue to gain kind of a market share on the offense, or at least maybe I just hope he will. He still has like a 65% snap share, 18 opportunities a game. And while I know McKissick is there, I still think Antonio Gibson, in terms of efficiency, can definitely put up a big number, especially against an Atlanta team that sucks and is getting crushed by everyone. So I think Gibson's another interesting pivot, similar to Ivy Jonathan Taylor. So those would be my 3 favorite kind of tournament-esque targets.
Yeah, absolutely love the calls on Taylor and Gibson. I think Taylor's a really strong play at his price tag on DraftKings. I like that. As far as a fade, I think I have 2 fades, and it's one, Sony Michel. I know he's projecting for high ownership now, but I think it's pretty clear Henderson's going to play, so I'm sure that projected ownership will come down. But I wouldn't be playing him even if Henderson was out. I still don't think I'd really be playing him. And then Cordell Patterson, another cheap guy. I will not have any of him this week either.
Oh, so sick of Cordell Patterson. Yeah, I'll say I don't know if anyone's really going to play him. I'm definitely not playing Barkley, even with the limited options. The Saints D just is good. I don't really know how the Giants can move the ball. I like Barkley the rest of the season. I think he's over a lot of his injury, but I don't have a ton of interest. And then, again, I don't know how chalk he'll be, if at all, but like people, I think primetime game, they just saw Zeke run all over. I'm not playing Zeke at all, like 0%. If he burns me, that's fine, but I much prefer the Panthers. Again, I said it could be overrated. We don't really know yet. They've given up less than 10 points on average to running backs. So
yeah, I don't want to victory lap early, but Bales and I did that bold call video before the season. One of my bold calls was Panthers win double-digit games. People laughed at me.
That's
started off pretty good. I'm sure it'll crash and burn here at the end of the season, but I'm gonna victory lap that while I can. As far as pivots at running back goes, high priced one is Dalvin Cook for me because I don't know if anyone would want to play him coming off that injury, but he didn't play last week. I'm assuming if he is active and in, then he's good enough to go because they rested him last week. So if he was that bad, they just wouldn't play him. And we like that
Mm-hmm.
game, which you and I just talked about. And then in the mid tier, Chuba Hubbard, I don't think anyone's going to play him
I was
because they
gonna ask you
priced him
about
up.
him.
Yeah, well, they priced him up to 5,900, and like Montgomery's cheaper. So I think people will play Montgomery over him. I think
Mhm.
he's a good pivot in the mid tier because we like that game. I think he'll be one of the lower owned pieces of that game at 5,900. So he still got almost 3/4 of the running back work once McCaffrey got hurt. And I think he'll be a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
involved just because they know McCaffrey's going to be out. It wasn't like a mid game thing this week. So I actually like Hubbard as a pivot in tournaments.
I pivot up top just because he always seems overpriced. If he is Aaron Jones. I don't think anyone will own Aaron Jones. Number one, because he's in the similar tier as Kamara, Henry, Chubb, Najee, and then the matchup isn't like tremendous or a slam dunk matchup by any means, but he's just getting a lot of usage and just feels like I was mentioning earlier. It just feels like when it's not Devonta Adams, it's just Aaron Jones is getting so much usage. I know AJ Dillon is there, but unless it's a blowout, I don't see that being a problem. I mean, Aaron Jones is not getting a ton of balls, but he is, as we saw that. Was that week 1 or 2? Or week 2, we call like a million receiving touchdowns. He's being used in the passing game. He has the most high value touches on average of running backs in the slate, and he's getting 17 to 20 opportunities a game. So, yeah, he's a little more boomer bust because not that he gets quote unquote game script out anymore, but just if the Packers go all passing, Rodgers just doesn't really care about anyone else besides Devontae Adams. So that is a risk, but I just think because of the price, like no one is going to own him whatsoever.
Yeah.
I like that Dalvin called it way too cheap.
Yeah, I know.
Wide usage.
Dalvin projecting for super low ownership right now. Obviously, that's because we don't know for sure if he's going to play. But I think even if he does play, people won't play him over Henry or Kamara. He's going to be by far the lowest owned guy up there. So
Yeah.
we will move to receiver. Sam, you can start off here. Give me your 3 favorites on the main slate for receiver.
So I guess I don't really need to mention how good Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams are. Devontae Adams is probably the best player on the slate.
Do you
That's pretty
do you
obvious.
think
I don't think any-
that's a good question here before we get into this. I think I think Cooper Kupp is going to be higher owned than Devontae, and he's 100
higher on
less.
Devontae. Yeah, it's egregious. No, it's
You
not
play
that Cooper Kupp isn't
Devontae.
sick. It's absolutely like 100 times.
If you're picking one,
I mean,
you play Devontae.
if nothing else, like remove everything. Who else is Rodgers thrown to? Literally no one.
Yeah.
Devontae Adams has like 40-some%, like nearly 50% of the air yards. Like Cooper Kupp is a stud and is clearly Stafford's first read, but like he still has Woods and Higbee and Van Jeff, and there's a lot of guys there. So yeah, Adams 100%. Kupp is still sick, but I think Kupp will be like 20% owned. I think Devontae will be like 15. But I like I'll go right back to keep just pine the rock on Justin Jefferson. I mentioned I kind of like that game as a low key good shootout. Jefferson, I mean, talk about like I'm so sick of Thielen catching every single touchdown. Like Jefferson literally has over double his air yard share compared to Thielen. He has a higher target share and averaging almost 10 targets a game, and just had that one touchdown robbed in week 1. I just think he's such a good play in this game. And then I think the only worry there is, the Cleveland pass rush and defensive line is pretty strong. So I don't know if Kirk could end up just having one of those Kirk Cousins game where he just can't do anything because he's getting all this pressure. And I will say that I don't know about you. I don't like to overrate. I think it's very overrated. Sometimes people take way too much stock in wide receiver cornerback matchups, but it is worth mentioning. I think Greg Newsome is out, right? He's like a freak athlete, and isn't he hurt?
I didn't see that he was hurt, but let me check on that.
I thought I saw because if Jefferson's lining up against Denzel Ward, who has looked terrible this season, I think he could eat all game. Because I thought Newsome
you're
got
correct.
hurt.
I didn't see that they ruled him out. Like I knew he was banged up, but
Yeah.
so I think they'll end up probably
This is-
swapping him. I'm assuming we'll see Greedy Williams step in, but yeah, that is a big loss. Newsome's been really good.
Like I said about the passing earlier, I love CeeDee Lamb. Everyone else, not that he's going to be a secret, but only 3 targets last week, but he still is averaging 9. He has he has a higher air yard share than Cooper, a higher target share than Cooper, and I just think he could just absolutely eat. And not to mention, I will say it's interesting to me. I didn't expect this, that Lamb is actually has pretty decent red zone usage. I mean, he's seeing over a quarter of the red zone targets for the team, which I thought was interesting. And he's just more efficient. I mean, he's run like 14 less routes than Cooper. Has like a slightly lower routes run rate, but is still outperforming him. And so I think that's a smash spot. And then the last guy, because I won't take all the chalk, I do love Odell. Odell looked great last week. He saw almost 50% of the air yards. Landry's still banged up. He saw 9 targets, and I think he could absolutely just eat in this game, especially because, like I said, I just think the Vikings D, I think, is so bad. I think it's like underratedly bad. So I think Odell was in a great, and I don't think Odell will be this cheap or this low owned probably again if he has a good game.
Yeah, I think you covered it pretty well. I think like in terms of the top plays, I do think that it's Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp. Definitely, I think they'll be closely owned, but I do think they are the top 2 plays. I think you want to play at least one of them in cash games. So I do think that's the top 2 plays, and then I do think Odell is probably the top mid-tier play. I talked about that on the cash process yesterday, but I think he's too cheap. Like you said, if he has another good game, he'll be much more expensive, and it's honestly like not that bad of a matchup for his price. So I think that's like chalky, like the best like cash game plays. Other guys I like outside of them, I like Allen Robinson. 5,800 for Allen Robinson. What like I know the Bears have been bad, but I think this is a good matchup to get back on the Bears. I don't know what they're gonna do at quarterback, so we'll wait and see on that. But I don't think it matters. Detroit literally has like the worst secondary in football. I don't know if you remember, but last week like they were ruling all these guys out. We were talking about how bad their secondary was, and it resulted in a lot of people hopping onto Lamar. By the time we got to Sunday, like he ended up being like pretty high owned. It's a really good spot for the Bears offense. Everyone's gonna be playing Montgomery. I mean, 5,800 is like insane.
I mean, I will say, it's like, you're still would play him, whether it's Fields, whether it's Dalton, or whether for some unknown reason it's Nick Foles. Like you think it's just too low given anything.
Yeah. I don't care who plays quarterback. 5,800 for Allen Robinson is too cheap. I really like him. And then I don't know if I want to go with the cheap guy. I mean, I think like Terrace Marshall is going to be decently owned. Maybe not decently owned, but he'll get some traction for cheap. Westbrook Akine for the Titans, I think will get some ownership just because he's so cheap. If those guys are out, but I'm gonna save this guy for the pivot. So I'm gonna talk about Odell and then Robinson, and then I'll probably pick Manny Sanders. I know everyone was on him 2 weeks ago. He does nothing. Last week he goes off. I'm not sure if people will play him, but I still like him at 4,900. I'm probably gonna play Josh Allen in cash, and he's the cheapest receiver. So I actually think going back to Manny Sanders is fine in all formats. Who's a fade for you? I have 2 really good pivots I want to talk about. So let's get the fades out of the way. Who are you not playing?
I have really pivots too. I'm so excited to get to the pivots. Right. I would say, guys, I don't really have any interest. I don't know. I will say he's been insanely efficient, and I'm just saying this. I don't know if he'll be super chalk. I'm just 2 guys actually at the same price. Deebo Samuel, I think, is a freak. I love him, and he's so good. It's really hard to see him capturing this magic all the time with Jimmy G. But more importantly, I'm not playing Brandon Cooks. Even if I played the Bills, I think that's the obvious run back, and I do get it. But like Trey White is no joke, and he will shadow him, and I just don't think that's, great. Last week Trey White held, Terry McLaurin to like 4 catches, I think. So I just don't think that's a good. I guess think that'd be a popular if Allen gets popular and the run back is obviously would be Cooks, and I get it. Insane air yards, insane targets, all this other stuff. I just think that could be a complete bust spot in which they could just trounce his team and Cooks could get shut down.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I probably won't have any Cooks either.
I can't trust Davis Mills.
Yeah, I probably won't have any either. I don't know if there's any other certain guy that I'm confident I won't be playing, but I can see myself having no Cooks on my few lineups, so I think that is a good call. Before we get to the pivots, I want to bring up Robert Woods because he's projecting for the highest ownership on the slate at receiver. What are you doing with him? I think that's kind of like that's going to be like the thing this week, right? Like everyone is going to be like, "Oh, you got to pivot to Robert Woods. He's only 5,300.
Yeah,
Why
I
are we not
mean,
playing Robert Woods?" I would play Odell and Allen
I would
Robinson
only
over
play him
Robert
in
Woods.
stack. I think I would only play him in stacks. Like I don't like Cup. I think you can one off or something and be a part of a team. I would only play Robert Woods if I'm playing like Stafford and Cup or Stafford and Higbee or something like that, and like a game stack or team stack. I just don't think I could one off of Robert Woods based on how he's used thus far. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense to me.
So you agree he's not a must in cash? You don't think?
Certainly not, and especially because I would just rather jam a lot of these higher priced running backs that I like, and I guess like I don't see Robert. I know cash life is like the floor. I just don't think his median or ceiling is really that much better than a lot of guys that are kind of similarly priced to him who are US owned. So,
Right.
but I'm not saying no. He's definitely not a priority.
All right. Well, one of my pivots is a direct pivot off him because he's a little bit cheaper. So I'm going to let you give your pivots first, and then I'll talk about mine.
Yeah, so mine is the exact same price point as Woods, and it's Christian Kirk. He, I think, has been, and I could be wrong, but I think there's so much talk about Kyler because he's in stud and Hopkins and their new speedy rookie Rondale Moore and how fast he is and everything like that. But Christian Kirk is still getting nearly 6 targets a game, has a third of the air yards, and actually has the 7th highest yards per run of all wide receivers in the league. So he's cheap. I'm not saying he's a lock, but I really like in what I think should be a pass-heavy game for the Cardinals. I like Kirk a lot, especially because with Robert Woods literally the same price, I just don't think that anyone is going to own him. My other pivot would be, I don't want to take yours, but okay, I will say I'm definitely going to risk it and play Robbie Anderson. And he's been bad. Is that yours?
It's not mine. I think that's a good call, though. Definitely.
It just, I don't know. I mean, he's still running a route on like 94% of Darnold's dropbacks. He, is only seeing like 3 targets a game, which is bad. He hasn't really done much in the last 2. But I will say that, he just, as we all know, it's such a high ADOT and things like that. He only needs that one to kind of break free and really pay off his value. And I think it's funny. I keep talking about not overrating matchups, but I keep bringing them up. I mean, Trevon Diggs is sick, and I assume he'll be on Moore a lot.
Diggs
And
has
if
been
Robbie
good,
Anderson,
man. Diggs has been really
he's a
good.
freak. And so I would assume he'd be on DJ Moore as he should. Maybe Darnold has to spread the ball a little more, but I guess I'm more based off. I just think they'll have to be passing more than usual because they're facing a good offense for probably the first time this year.
Yeah, that could be like the squeaky wheel thing too, because I think Rule came out and said like we need to get Robbie Anderson more involved, and we know that Rule has a crush on Robbie Anderson like openly. So yeah,
Exactly.
I think that's a good, especially if you're game stacking that game, just throw Robbie Anderson there, a little bit lower owned exposure. But top tier pivot for me is Stephon Diggs. I don't know if people will play him even with stacking Josh Allen. Yeah, the Diggs breakout is coming, so you want to be ahead of that. And then this might be my favorite tournament play on the slate. He is 4,900 on DraftKings. I'm going to see if you can guess who this is. This guy has more targets on the season than Amari Cooper, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce. It is Jalen Waddle. Dude, he's getting all these targets. Okay, he's up against Indy, who we love to target the slot receivers against, right? And the fast receivers. Like, what did Tyler Lockett do week 1? Like, this is the exact mold of a receiver we like to target against Indy. So I think Jalen Waddle is going to be really low owned. I think he's a really, really good play this week on DraftKings.
I gotta say, I thought you were gonna take this guy. It's funny you mentioned him because in that same game, I would totally have a mini correlation. I really like Michael Pittman.
Yeah, definitely.
I know Wentz sucks. That's obvious, but Michael Pittman.
No, he's dominating the air yards, dominating the 27% target share. I think both those guys are good plays, but Waddle a little bit cheaper. I really like that matchup for him.
By the way, fun fact, speaking of the Cardinals, what I was earlier, you know who leads the Cardinals in targets?
Is it AJ Green?
Yeah, it's Dusty AJ Green, and then Christian Kirk.
Insane, dude.
So this offense clearly is a disarray.
Yeah, what is Hopkins'
Clearly,
target shares like? What, like 18% or something? 18, 19%. Crazy.
yeah, exactly. His air yards is I mean, I don't know. So it's like I agree. That's why I like your Diggs calls. I agree. Like Hopkins, like he just is such an alpha. Like there will be a game where it absolutely explodes. Like it will happen.
Yeah. All right, let's move to tight end here. I will start. We don't necessarily have to give out our three favorites because I just don't play a lot of tight ends. I normally have a pretty tight
No.
tight end pool. So we'll
Yeah.
talk about chalk and then not chalk. So I don't know if you know where chalk. I think Kelsey will get his usual 15 or whatever
Mm-hmm.
percent. I think Noah Fan is cheap. I'm sure people will go to him. People will go back to Higbee. And then I think Jack
Yep.
Doyle, if he plays at 27, is like the chalk cheap
I
guy.
can't understand. Yeah, I can't understand. I see the same chocolate. I don't get it. Don't they have like 3 tight ends? I don't
Yeah,
understand.
I think that's gonna be the main concentration. And Kittle will probably get his usual like 15% as well. So that's probably like the main where all the
Yeah.
attention is gonna go. Are you playing any of those guys, or are you gonna be pivoting? I think Higbee's my favorite of those guys. I just like not including Kelsey, who's obviously a great play, but outside of that, I think Higbee's probably my favorite of those mid tier guys.
Yeah, I like him. I don't know. I do love the spot for Fant. I think he could gain more steam, but I mean, just with Hamler gone for the season, Judy's out, and I know it's not the same caliber, but Baltimore has been shredded by tight ends. I
Yeah,
get it was Kelsey and Waller. They've
except for
given up literally
not T.J. Hawkinson
not
though. Yeah,
well, no, not Hawkinson because
he was
that's why they
Fells
lost
was
overall.
catching
But
those balls, man.
gosh, how is he still a job? Yeah, no, like they've given up like 23 DK points on average to tight ends. I mean, that's ridiculous. And like Fan plays in the slot. And so I like him. The other guy, I mean, it's funny you mentioned I actually think Kittle is probably my fade. I don't know why. It's the same thing with Debo Samuel. I get it. Kittle is so good, and I get it all, but he blocks off and just Jimmy for some reason doesn't understand that we should be throwing to Kittle all the time. He hasn't gotten that yet, but if
I
he
would rather
does,
just
then that'll be
I
good.
would rather make sacrifices and get up to Kelsey than spend 6K on a tight end.
Me too. Me too. I'll just go right into my pivot, and I just will continue to get burned. I mean, Kyle Pitts has to like the Falcons have to get their head out of their ass at some point. Like he never targeted till the fourth quarter last week. What?
Yeah, I don't know. I
That
don't know what's going on with that whole situation, to be honest.
annoying. But I will say I think he'll be well owned because of it, and that like a lot of people like that game. I think I could see Mike Davis being owned, maybe Ridley, maybe Ryan. But I don't think people because Pitts just burned me included a lot of people. Um, Do you think? I mean, are you going to go back to Dalton Schultz after everyone saw him just pipe down that lowly Eagles team?
Um, I mean, I think
I like
if you look
Dak,
at the
but
Dallas guys, there's still two of them, right? If you look at it's the same thing with Philly. Like, there's still two of them, and they're both on the field. So it's tough for me to play those guys outside of like if you're stacking. Um, I don't know.
yeah.
I like Tommy Tremble. I don't know if he's gonna be chalk or not. He's 2,500. He scored last week. I don't care. I wish that he didn't score last week, but I like him for cheap. I'm not saying he's gonna smash. Like he literally could score 0 points, 100% possible. But I mean, he's athletic, big. He's gonna be on the field, and it's like a good matchup. So I'm fine playing
So the
paying
exact
20.
same.
Like I would rather play him than Doyle. I think.
Okay, but Ben, what about for 2,500? Can I just do the exact same price? Could get a 0, but has run a route on 85% of his quarterbacks dropbacks. Actually, is number 1 in targets per route. And that would be Harrison Bryant at 2,500.
Yeah, tournaments you can play Harrison Bryant. The only problem is like Tremble. I know is like. I mean, I feel pretty confident in him being like the lead tight end. The Browns literally play three tight ends all the time, and like they will play them all at the same time, and they like they want to do it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's
I
just
mean, I just
I don't
like,
know.
yeah.
But Bryant could score. Like if you're playing a lot of lineups, like you could throw any of those Cleveland guys in there. It's just tough to play them in one lineup because they have three of them that they put on the field. sometimes all three together. So it's just weird.
And the very last guy I will mention, who clearly is kind of carved out some role, is Tyler Conklin, 3,500. Like we talked about playing Kirk earlier. I mean,
I'm a
Conklin
Conklin
is not.
truther, you know that. I
No,
I actually like Logan
Conklin-
Thomas. We didn't mention Logan Thomas either. I think Logan Thomas is a great play.
Logan Thomas has not missed a snap this year.
No, and he's projecting for low, like way lower ownership than
Yeah.
Higbee and Noah Fant. Like I like Logan Thomas more than those guys this week.
I just feel like people when I mean Tyler Conklin is averaging 5.3 targets a game.
Yeah,
No one would think about that.
Tyler Conklin's good.
But,
I actually think he's good.
Yeah. I don't heard Dustin.
All right, let's finish up here with some stacks and some bold calls. Give me like your 2 or 3 favorite stacks this week, Sam.
So my favorite, I think, I'm not like being that different here, would be Dallas and Carolina. I like the Dak Lamb Amari, and I do actually, in terms of tournament, like I kind of want to run it back with Robbie over DJ Moore, not because I think he's a better play straight up, just because I think that leverage and way cheaper. I like that game environment. I think that it could go way over the total, and I think Dak, I could see him returning more to that 45 plus dropbacks or so. The other game, I mentioned, I'm just trying to mention all the chalk games. It's a low total, but that Green Bay Pittsburgh one, it's like if you just can capture, Rodgers and Devontae getting so much of the volume, and then even, running it back with 2 guys or 1, running back with Najee and or Claypool if Deontay misses, I think, the Vegas total is not like a 55 or something, but there's a good chance you play those 4 guys or those 3, passing options and running back. I mean, they're getting 70+% of the volume. And so I like that as kind of I don't want to say sneaky because it could fail, but that's my kind of like leverage stack that I like a lot, and will also be in my write-up.
I like it. I'm gonna pick 3 disgusting stacks this week that I like in tournaments. So these are like, I only play 3-4 lineups, so I might just be rolling these disgusting stacks in my lineups this week. But I'm gonna go with number 1, Taylor Heineke to Terry McLaurin, and run it back with Calvin Ridley. I like that one.
We're not playing Logan.
Yeah, you can use I mean, you could double stack, or you can use Logan Thomas either. Either one I think is fine. I'm gonna go Justin Fields and Allen Robinson. I don't know if I want to even run. I don't know if I want to run that back.
Like you say, you talk about it, and then you're like,
dude, do you run it back like Alpha? Run it back with Hawkinson after that dud. Just own everyone.
No.
Just play all the guys that sucked last week. Fields terrible last week. Hawkinson terrible last week. No one wants to play him. All right,
I'll post my lineup from last week in Discord because it was dust, so it'll go off this week. So if anyone wants to play that, I'll post that.
Fields, Robinson, Hawkinson, and then last one, Cousins, Jefferson, Odell.
Oh yeah. I might play that too. I might play just to get real dusty. Play a little Kirk, Jefferson, Conklin, the Tyler Conklin. That's a terrible play.
Let's do it. All right. We gave away our stacks. We talked about each position. If you guys are still watching, please, reminder, YouTube, like the video. We really appreciate it. It allows us to continue to produce these videos every week. We are going to give away some bold calls before we head out. Sam, hit me with your week 4 bold call that we get right every single week. Have never missed a bold call on this show.
It is worth noting that on our Sunday stream last week, Ben and I both are bold calls. Ben was way more bold than mine, but it's just, that is a 100% hit rate.
Yeah. I mean, this is what the people come for.
My bold call is that Robbie Anderson catches 2 touchdowns this week. That's right. 2 touchdowns despite having 3 targets a game.
I have Robbie Anderson on like 2 of my 10 season-long leagues, so that those 2 teams would be happy if he did that. I'm gonna go with a receiver as well. I'll go with Jalen Waddle, 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
I love that call. I mean, I wrote it down. That's a great call.
All right, we have done it. We have gone over the positions, bold calls, stacks. Thank you very much for watching. If you guys don't know, we do a stream every Sunday morning, Sam and myself, 11 a.m. You can find it on YouTube, Twitch, wherever you watch this content at. We do a live stream where we answer all of your questions. We're on for about an hour, so be sure to tune into that if you haven't. That being said, we'll see you guys Sunday morning, and good luck in week 4.